This is Moses in the episode of the burning bush, Exodus chapter 3, verse 4. When the Lord saw, this is talking about Moses, when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, that Moses had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses, and he said, here I am. And so here, Moses, right, tending sheep in the wilderness for 40 years after he tried to take God's deliverance in his hand to deliver the Israelites. He murders the Egyptian. He has to flee from Pharaoh, and he's just out there for 40 years. And then God goes on to tell him who he is, the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then he says this in verse 7 and 8 of chapter 3. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, right? And so God is taking initiative here in calling Moses, but he's also responding to the prayers of his people, right? Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved, right? And it's even true of Israel back then, that they're crying out under the oppression of the Egyptians, and God's hearing their cry. And so God's having grace, but he's also going to work through means, right? He's calling that means. He's calling Moses, and Moses is going to be that leader that he wasn't 40 years before. But unless God graciously calls Moses from the burning bush, he tends sheep in the wilderness until he dies, and God's people remain in Egypt.